Game of Thrones comes from a series of novels called A Song of Ice and Fire, which most fans take to mean as an inevitable clash between White Walkers and dragons, or the Stark and Targaryen blood that's coursing through Jon Snow's veins. But there's another tension between ice and fire at play in Thrones, and it all boils down to one family. Here's everything you need to know about House Lannister. There are many reasons why Game of Thrones is so subversive, and the constant success of its most villainous characters ranks right at the top of the list.
Bring me his head.
Look no further than Jaime and Cersei Lannister, the twin siblings and lovers who were caught having sex at the end of the first episode of the series, prompting their first act of extraordinary violence against House Stark.
The things I do for love.
In any other story, the Lannisters would receive swift comeuppance for their actions, but in the world of Westeros, they instead receive reward after reward, including a full takeover of the Iron Throne and the near extinction of their fiercest enemies. But even with so much money and power firmly in the Lannisters' fists, the tide eventually starts to turn against them. First, Jaime Lannister becomes a prisoner of war. He loses his sword-fighting hand, and then he starts to gain something of a conscience.
When the king turned to flee, I drove my sword into his back.
Next, Jaime and Cersei's son Joffrey gets assassinated, with their brother Tyrion blamed as the culprit. Tyrion is innocent of that crime, but he's very much guilty of murdering their father Tywin, shooting Daddy Dearest to death during a midnight bathroom break. The Lannister losses don't end there, as Jaime and Cersei's remaining two children eventually die as well. With their younger brother branded a traitor, and with all their children gone, the Lannisters have now boiled down to two. Cersei sitting on the Iron Throne as queen, and Jaime still at her side, albeit with some pretty clear reservations about how his sweet sister plans to rule. After all, given that the icy Cersei set King's Landing on fire, there's every reason to think that the queen has gone mad. And there are reasons to think that Jaime and Cersei's relationship will only get worse in the episodes ahead. Earlier in her life, a witch named Maggie the Frog warned Cersei about future events in which she would rise to power, but at the expense of her children's lives. What's more, Cersei would eventually be killed by the Valonqar, which is High Valyrian for little brother. Cersei thinks the prophecy is referring to Tyrion, but technically, Jaime is her younger brother as well, born mere seconds after Cersei. Given that the prophecy has come true regarding her ascension to power and the loss of her children, will the rest of it come true as well in the form of Jaime eventually killing Cersei? It's hard to say for sure just yet, but the Lannisters' self-destruction is certainly one of the most explosive possibilities still on the table as Game of Thrones heads into the endgame. For more on the Lannisters, head to thr.com/Game of Thrones, or keep the conversation going with me on Twitter @RoundHoward.